Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Debt is a four-letter word. It's a word that some people want out of their vocabulary and their lives. But not all debt is created equal. For instance, pulling out a credit card to pay for that new smartphone is not the same as borrowing money to buy a home. For today's Money Monday segment, we're going to discuss that four-letter word. I'll be talking with certified financial planner Christine Moriarty about the details on debt and what you need to know. Christine is the president of Money Peace in Bristol. She joins us each month to address specific money-related topics. It's good to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be here.
Well, understanding debt is certainly a fundamental part of financial literacy. Where do we need to start?
We'd start with there's secured debt and unsecured debt because people lump debt all together, and secured debt tends to be a debt to help you move forward somehow. So think of secured debt as a mortgage on a house or a car payment. And why is that secured? Because whoever's giving you the money can come and get that car, or as we learned in the housing crisis, can come and get that home.
Right.
Unsecured debt is credit cards and anything that isn't tied in. So it could be school loans, a vacation loan, or just, you got a loan to get through some short period of time.
Okay. So there are these two types of debt, but not all secured debt is the same either.
No, not all secured debt is the same either. So mortgage debt, you're creating something for the future. So you're creating your house, you have a payment, which once that's paid off, you won't have any housing expense. And
so that becomes cheaper.
Right. And most of the time, houses go up in value. And we know within 10 years, sometimes they don't, but over the 30-year period, they would. Cars, on the other hand, are secured debt, but they're transportation, and it's an expense, and that car is going down in value. So you want to really figure out, okay, is this a really good thing to be making a $800 a month car payment on something that's decreasing?
Right. So it's not the asset that a house is.
Right, exactly. It's not the expanding asset that a house is. And a house will also have some equity in it, so it will be going up in value on your balance sheet. Here's the thing that bugs me about car loans, and I hear it on the radio and I go, oh, I want to call them right now. So is that they say we can lower your payment, but if they're lowering your payment, that means you will owe less of the car. You want to have more equity in the car. You want to have more equity in the house. You want to own more of it, which would keep it on a balance sheet how much you owe and how much you own.
Right.
You want to own more all the time.
So your monthly payments might be a little higher, but you're paying it off.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly. When it comes to a house or any kind of debt like school loans, anything.
Yeah. So, in your public talks over the years, you consistently talk and discuss the emotional component of money. So what do you mean by that first?
First of all, that money, we have push buttons installed in childhood of our reactions to money, whether it's debt, having money, whatever. There are some things in our personalities, in our experience, in our families that just are a part of us, and we need to acknowledge that when we're dealing with our money. And acknowledging that when dealing with debt is even more critical, because if you accumulate debt, most people are like going for the immediate gratification. Isn't it easy to whip out your credit card? And then we have to live with the stress of debt. So whipping out the credit card is easy. Living with the stress is hard. So when someone offers to help us pay off our debt really quickly, we jump at it without thinking it through.
But even so, would you recommend, if you can, for credit cards, you want to pay that off every month if you can, so you're not paying that interest?
Absolutely, but
Sky-high interest.
But the best way is not to get into it to begin with, and it happens to all of us. So I'm not gonna, But you want to stop using that credit card if you cannot pay it off.
Okay.
Stop using it and then be able to pay it off. Don't say, oh, I'll pay it off next month. Put the credit card away and go back to using cash.
What other kind of mistakes do people make when they're
they're trying to pay it.
that emotional piece comes in.
Okay, so we talked about getting it paid off as quick as possible.
Right.
So sometimes people take all their savings and put it in towards their credit card. And that's not so good to do. You need some savings because we do remember the government shutdown. Don't use a secured asset to pay off an unsecured debt. So the secured asset could be your house. Don't use that to pay off a credit card. Because if you're still using the credit card, it's a revolving cycle. It's going to happen again.
Right.
And then don't go to those companies that say, hey, we'll negotiate for you, because they tend to charge you a lot of money.
Okay, so that's not the way to go.
No.
So whether it's secured or unsecured, what are your recommendations on how we should pay off that debt then?
Then pay off that debt. It could be little by little is what you have to pay it off. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Again, back to that emotional thing. We don't like that little by little because we want the immediate gratification.
Yeah.
So what you can do is pay it off and create a plan. So have a plan that makes sense. Do it slow and steady. And the first thing is just enlighten yourself by writing it down and seeing the details. How much do I actually owe? People need to see it in black and white. What's the interest rate on this credit card? If you have a credit card with 27% interest, it's going to be like, whoa. And what's my monthly payment I have to make? Write it down, then create a plan of how I can pay it off little by little, even if it's $20 a month, and talk to a company and be honest with them. Like if it's a credit card company, often they'll negotiate and you say, hey, I can only afford $50 for the next 3 months, and then I'm going to get a bonus or my tax refund, or I'm going to be able to afford more. Can we make that minimum payment?
Right.
Right.
But make a plan. Don't just ignore it and put it off because, I don't want to deal with the
That's
money,
not
right?
a strategy, right? That's an emotional reaction. We don't want to be purely emotional. We want to kind of sit down and look at the numbers.
Okay, awesome. And, now here's a tough one for parents and some grandparents. What about helping others pay off debt or so they don't accumulate debt? It's very tempting to help, but where's that fine line?
Every person and every family will have a different fine line. Okay, so I want to put that. However, 45% of baby boomers don't have anything saved for retirement. So look at yourself first. If you aren't ready for retirement, you shouldn't be out helping other people. Okay, you have to take care of yourself. So that's a boundary. What you can do to help them is remember that they are building a credit history. Help them look at their credit reports, because a lot of times I've seen young adults get out of school without any debt, which is great, and then they go to buy a car and their parents helps them, and so they have no credit history of ever paying anything off.
And they can't get the loan.
Well,
maybe, or
for a car you can, for a house you couldn't.
Well,
because
okay.
cars are pretty easy to repossess.
Right.
So they are willing to get you in a car. But the credit reports, and they need to build that credit history and that financial muscle so they know how to do it in the future. So they're building their assets, they're building their credit history, and car insurance, some employers look at people's credit history. So remind yourself before you remind your adult child or someone that this is good that you have it, now let's make a plan. So what not to do is pay it all off for them. Because just like ourselves with the credit card, if it gets paid off all at once, they're just going to keep doing the same habit.
So you don't want to write them a check or go into debt yourself.
No, those are two things definitely don't do. Right, hold on to that money. You can help them by doing things that are within your means, teach them about debt, offer them a secured loan. If you do have $10,000 around, okay, and you put it in a CD, the bank can work with you to do a secured loan, so you make it a joint CD. So I could do it with Fran, and then Fran could take a loan off of it and pay that back. Now, that's only if I could afford to lose that $10,000. Right. And that's the same as if you co-sign anything for someone. Make sure you can afford to lose that money, because it will fall on your plate.
Right.
I know someone who is living on Social Security who signed $200,000 worth of school loans for somebody. Think about it.
Right.
They could never have paid it back. So you really need to think, what does co-signing mean? What does co-signing a car mean? What does co-signing anything mean? Debt falls on my lap.
Sure. So you want to make sure you have that money before
Right.
you.
Right,
the-
right. So
the sum
saying
of
no
that.
is okay. The two things you might want to think about doing if you want to help someone, you could write them a check directly to pay off part of their debt, if you have that money.
Right.
So it goes directly there. Or you could give them a small down payment for that car. So
To
their
help them
payments,
out.
right. So there's ways to work with it.
So to sum up, what are the key things that you want the viewers to take away from today's
First
talk?
of all is take care of your own debt and know that there's good and bad. So write it down so you know what you have and where it is. Most people just are going blindly. Behavior matters. So watch your emotions around this,
Right.
you know. And then take care of yourself before you take care of others. And then one way of taking care of yourself is build that savings account that we've talked about on this show before, is having some cash.
Okay. Your advice is so helpful. And for more information, people can about these money managers, you can actually ask Christine a question. She's open to that. You can use her website, moneypeace.com, or give her a call at 802-453-5913. Christine, thank you so much. And thanks, I also threw out from your last talk.
Of spring cleaning, I was going to ask.
checked out and I threw out many years that were still sitting there that didn't need to. So thank you very much.
Excellent. So we are making progress then. What a team.
And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.